So our next company presenting here today will be Kancera, and with us on link we have Thomas Olin, who is the CEO of the company. I leave the word to you, Thomas.
Thank you very much. So Kancera is tackling a situation where you have a stressed immune system, and a stressed immune system in inflammatory conditions means that you put lung and cardiovascular function at risk. We have developed very selective immune modulators that have the potential to retune the immune system and thereby preserve organ function and promote rehabilitation. And I will talk more about this today. Hyperinflammation. Well, hyperinflammation is a condition where the immune system is overreacting to a challenge, and the overreaction leads to tissue damage. And as I mentioned, we have developed small molecule antagonists, which have the capacity to block this hyperinflammation. Hyperinflammation is a condition which is more common in the context of immune aging. So an aged immune system is more prone to allow hyperinflammation to happen. Immune aging could be due to age as such or stress. One such stress factor is virus infections. So virus infections will trigger the immune system to overreact, and that is something that we would like to block. The two first conditions that we are addressing in clinical phase 2 are heart attack on one hand and COVID-19 on the other. We also know that this type of hyperinflammation, which we can block with CAN567, is evident in other acute tissue injuries, like spinal cord injury, where we have shown that CAN567 can promote motor function after this type of injury. Another example is autoimmune diseases, where we can block, for example, the exaggerated immune response leading to nerve dysfunction in MS. And as I mentioned earlier, viral disease is also a condition where you see this type of hyperinflammation and tissue damage. And now I'm not only talking about COVID-19, but also viruses like cytomegalovirus in cardiovascular disease, or RS virus, which provokes symptoms which are quite alike SARS-CoV-2 and COVID-19. And furthermore, rhinovirus, which triggers kind of asthmatic asthmatic hyperreaction. So what does this compound do, CAN567? Well, it blocks a certain receptor, which is called the fractalkine receptor, 6-3-CR1. 6-3-CR1 sits on immune cells circulating in the blood, and it helps the immune cells to dock onto certain tissues like lung, heart, through the vascular system. And following the docking, the immune cells can infiltrate the tissues and cause this hyperactive inflammatory response, and thereby the tissue damage. So the fractalkine receptor is root of the problem, but also part of the solution, because the compound that we have developed, the drug candidate CAN567, is able to block the fractalkine receptor and thereby prevent the docking of the immune system onto the vascular tissue, and thereby we can block infiltration of immune cells and block the damaging inflammation. So that is how the compound works. Well, Now we are in a situation where we can start phase 2 studies to deal with this virus and trauma-triggered hyperinflammation. We have currently two phase 2 studies in the pipeline, one targeting myocardial infarction, and we have an advanced protocol in hand and are closely collaborating with Newcastle University Hospital, Freeman Hospital, and also the University Hospital in Middlesbrough. So the unit there and the foundation driving these hospitals, they are clearly interested in supporting us financially and scientifically to get this study off the ground. And we expect to have the first patient in Q1, Q2, 2021. And results we expect in about 12 months from start. The COVID study, well, it's approved, it's ongoing. We started it already Q3 this year. We are doing it on one site, the St. Göran Hospital in Stockholm, Sweden, and we expect results within 3 to 6 months from start. So the first medical problem that we are addressing is the main heart attacks you see in the anterior wall of the heart. Those are the most devastating, and they are caused by coronary occlusion. So stopping the transportation of oxygen and nutrients into the heart. And the more extensive you see the damage is here, the more extensive is also are also the consequences of a major heart attack. So in the late 70s, there was a very important discovery made, a coronary intervention where you can open up the vessels again and allow the blood flow to return into the heart. And that helps a lot. But in spite of these advanced surgical interventions and also medical interventions, about 25% of these patients suffer from a major complication or even die within 5 years. So the problem is not fixed. And now we know more about the reason for this. And one of the main driving factors is the hyperinflammation that is triggered by this life-saving intervention, the percutaneous coronary intervention, PCI. And by stopping the inflammation following a heart attack, we have shown in disease models that we can reduce the tissue damage by 50%. So we are in reach for a really groundbreaking change in the treatment of these patients. And that is what we aim at with this study. So if you look at the study protocol, you see on the left-hand side the type of inclusion criteria, the criteria which we use to select patients to enter into the study. So it should, of course, be an acute anterior myocardial infarction. You see that on ECG. The symptoms should not be extensive in time. We need the patient to come into hospital within 4 hours of symptom onset. So with that cleared, we take on the patient within 20 to 90 minutes arriving at the hospital and put them after approval on either an active treatment with CAN567 intravenously first, and then after 6 hours peroral administration, which we continue over 72 hours. Or we give the patient placebo. And we follow the patients using MRI, the magnetic camera, reflecting properties in the heart that tells us how well the heart works as a pump, how well or how extensive the damage is, and how extensive the inflammation is. And this is also followed with cellular and genetic and proteomic markers of tissue integrity. So, yeah. So the second medical need is COVID-19, and here we treat hospitalized patients which come in with a severe pneumonia. And here we have inclusion criteria, including saturation of oxygen in the blood and a number of inflammatory markers. We put them on treatment for either 7 days, with 2 times a day, with a capsule of containing 250 milligrams of the active compound, or placebo. And we follow up, as we do in the myocardial infarction study, after 21 days or 90 days. So market, we have calculated from a health and economical perspective, the market potential in heart attack and in COVID, and they both represent a market of several $100 million, and that is based on the actual medical use and the value to society. So finally, I just want to mention that we have also engaged in one study on long COVID patients. You know that about 2% of patients which are positive in the SARS-CoV-2 assay, that is, they are positive for COVID-19, they suffer for a number of months of neurological, muscular, and cardiovascular symptoms. And the reason for this is unknown, and treatment is failing. So now we are embarking on a study to learn what the reason could be, what the involvement could be of the immune system, and if we could make a change. So with that, I'd like to thank you all for your attention.
Thank you very much, Thomas. I do have some questions for you, and I would like to start off with out-licensing seems to be a key part of your business model. How far would you say that you have come in these types of discussions?
Well, as for many biotech companies, you have an ongoing and continuous dialogue with potential takers of your projects. So that is what we have as well. We met about 5 big pharma and big biotech companies the other week during Bio Europe. And at those meetings, we have the opportunity to update the takers, potential takers, on our progress and learn from them what type of qualities that they look for in the project, so that we could take that on and build our project even stronger.
The phase 2 study of CAND 567 in cardiac patients is scheduled to begin next year. What do you hope to be able to communicate from this study during the year, and what else is in the cards for 2021?
Well, we are firstly, we have one phase 2 study ongoing for in COVID-19 patients, and as you mentioned, early next year we plan to start a second study. During 2021, we will complete the first COVID-19 study. We will also complete the long COVID study, learning whether we can expand the market within COVID to also include long COVID patients. And we will also complete one of our EU projects, EU-supported projects in the field of cancer and DNA damage response, where we expect to see interesting preclinical data from our platform of fractal kine blockers.
Thank you very much, Thomas, and thank you for your presentation and your time. We will be back shortly.
Thank you for having me.